Hello, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about the comics I picked up this week, New Comic Book Day, November 13th. And this week was a big one. Probably the single biggest comics day looking forward to as far as since I started buying comics again. This week was probably the biggest week that I've had this week as far as anticipation of comics. So we're going to start off with Absolute Batman #2. So it's Scott Snyder, art by Nick Dragotta, and this, I was when the first issue was out, I was like, yeah, I liked it, not sure, I enjoyed it, but I've since read the other Absolute titles, and this to me stands out as the best of the bunch. And what I really like about this issue, continues, building the character of this Batman. But what I love is that it started out, it foreshadowed this in the first issue, but it starts off with the point of view of Alfred, and that continues in this issue, and I think that's awesome. Like, I really love the fact that this is it adds an extra level of mystery to the character of Batman. Instead of, so we don't start inside the head of this Bruce Wayne. We're introduced to this new Alfred, and then introduced to the Batman through Alfred's eyes, and I think that is awesome. Like, that's a really smart take, and so again, it sets up relationships that we're not used to seeing. There's a scene where this Bruce Wayne plays a poker game with his friends, and all of his friends are the characters you saw in the first issue. His childhood friend group, but it's the Rogues Gallery. It's Killer Croc, Wayland, Penguin, Riddler, the Joker. They're all there. Two-Face. But they're not actually. I actually don't think Joker's there. I got them confused because the way that that's one thing. Like the way that Dragotta draws faces, they're more elongated. So that's what it was. It was the Penguin made me think it was the Joker because it had that kind of elongated look instead of usually Penguin's a rounder face. But anyway, yeah. So Joker not there. But it's Penguin, Two-Face, and then they make reference to Selina as a member of the friend group that's not there. I tell you, this, I've been having a lot of fun with it. The second issue really kind of, I've since gone back and again, I've talked about how I should do this anyway. It's just given the nature of trying to talk about new comics the week they come out. I benefit from sitting with the story longer, So Absolute Wonder Woman, Absolute Superman, reading those gave me a new perspective on Absolute Batman, and then I also went back and read the first issue of Absolute Batman again. So I think, given that context and letting it kind of sit more with me, I am the type of person that I don't think I can articulate well right off the bat, like what resonates with me. And we'll talk a little bit about that. There's another thing similarly in that vein a little later in another issue we're going to talk about. But Absolute Batman, so far so good. And it's not. Is it a necessity to pick these up? I would say no. I mean, you can wait and read these in trades. But if you're buying comics weekly, they're fun, and there's been like multiple reprints already of the first one, so there should be. They should be out there to get a copy. And actually, there's again, they got me. This is the reprint of Absolute Batman #1. It's the Noir edition, so it's just all of the line art, the scans, of the art with the words, the dialogue, overlaid on top of the art. So, yeah. It's much cheaper way of appreciating the art than the going rate for the original art pages for Absolute Batman #1. So I just so see by buying this $5 comic, I saved myself money. That's just smart. Whatever, the way the collector brain works. I still enjoy the original pages, but they're going to be outside my price range for what I think. For what I think they're worth. But again, that'll mileage will vary. I mean, it'll be worth it to others, just maybe not me. But the another thing I picked up was a variant cover of issue #2. So Daniel Warren Johnson cover, and this is just very striking. I love the way that Mike Spicer did the colors, kind of like not monochromatic, but like there's it's all blues and purples to kind of show all of the other uh, the characters of the was it the party gang, and again names not my part. I think it's the party gang is the like the main villain group of in the Absolute universe, but or in the Absolute Batman book. But yeah, that's just a good a lot of times this Batman is so hulking and big, and the fact that Danny Warren Johnson opted to make him smaller, not he's still a big character, but he's what he takes up in the cover is relatively small, and I think that's smart, really cool. All right, so next up in the week that was pretty awesome is Transformers issue 14. I actually have I've been doing this with all of the series the issues so far, but there's the Danny Warren Johnson cover of Astro Train, and then there's this wild kind of spoilery variant of from Jorge Corona, and shows you the fate of Starscream, and yeah, it's funny. So this issue wraps up the two issue kind of origin of Starscream story, kind of not a detour, but just it catches us up to speed with what Starscream was up to after the events of the Transformers issue 7. Then it did some flashback stuff to show how Starscream was introduced to Megatron, and then a lot of this issue is set in the present day. Actually, yeah, it is present day because it's set at the time after the events of Transformers 12. So it picks up, actually fittingly he's on the cover, but finally we catch up with Astro Train, who was he was left on the beach tied up by a beachcomber. But yeah, so this man. I feel like the last issue 13, in talking about Jason Howard's art, I wasn't quite sure how to like what I thought about it. I liked it, but there were elements about the issue that I didn't like as much, but it fit. So what I've kind of like the more I've thought about it, and after reading this issue, I think it was the what threw me was the happier nature of the flashback story being told, Starscream's origin when he was not the Starscream that we know, when there were happier times on Cybertron before the Civil War, and that's what kind of took me out of the story. And I think I incorrectly placed my I don't want to say unease with the story, but my hesitance with accepting the story. I think I unfairly blamed that on the art, and it wasn't the art, because a lot of this issue is set in the present day. And actually, I talked about last issue how I liked the art. Towards the end of the issue where it was the present day stuff, and actually, I have that page that I purchased with Starscream and the Hiss tank, and yeah, so the Starscream and the Hiss tank. This is wild card, like wild comic booky stuff. So the salvage crew decided to, Starscream had no legs, so they attached Starscream to the Hiss tank, and now they have a remote control that is they've kind of they're gonna use Starscream to their just however they want to use him, and obviously that does not sit well with Starscream, and there are some really like genuinely funny moments in this book, and yeah, like it surprised me, but like, and I'm not like usually one that actually physically will laugh out loud like while reading a comic, but I definitely had a smile on my face a lot of through this issue because of Starscream. So last issue there was actually in the page that I bought, there was a character who was sketching Starscream, and he's in this issue again, and he's like telling Starscream like, yeah, we found you, this is what happened, look, I was drawing pictures of you while this was happening, and there's this panel which is just awesome. There's he's like, see, your legs were gone, we saved you. It's like, that is all wrong. And then Starscream's like, my proportions are completely off, draw me again and do it right this time. Now, if that's not Daniel Warren Johnson injecting himself, the artist, into the story in the form of Starscream, I don't know what is. How many times has an artist probably beaten themselves up over whatever, an arm placement or whatever it is. So that moment is just was great. And there's some really funny moments with Starscream and a cat. Like I didn't have that on my bingo card for Transformers, but genuinely a surprising issue. And it after reading this one, I fully appreciate issue 13 even more than I did before. So this was a great 2 issue arc, and the other thing I need to correct myself on is I said last issue when I looked at 13, or I forget if I said it in the issue talking the bagged and boarded talking about the comic, or if I said it during the unboxing of the Jason Howard page that I bought. But I said I would rather see him on a GI Joe series. Now, I still think he would do great on a GI Joe series, but after this issue, there's some Combaticon characters in here, Astro Train. The way that he has drawn the Transformers, I'd be more than happy to see him return on some more Transformers issues. So yeah, this sets up we know through the solicitations of issue 15 that there's going to be some Decepticon infighting, and that's good because the Autobots have been getting beat up and torn down, and the fact that that you're going to have some Decepticons fighting each other, that's something we can all root for that. So they've teased that there's and it's in here too, but there's going to be some crazy combiner fighting. So I can only imagine that you're gonna have Devastator and Bruticus fighting each other, and like I am ready. And the fact that it's Jorge Corona coming back next issue, bring it on. That's awesome. So all right, so Transformers, great issue, and then the other big issue this week was GI Joe #1. This man, like I was anticipating this comic. I've talked about it. I'm a big fan of Tom Riley's art. I've loved what Joshua Williamson did with both the Duke and the Cobra Commander miniseries. Those are my two favorites of the 4 setup series. And I mean, it comes together wonderfully in this first issue. There is one of the biggest things that I've said about Tom Riley's art is he's just a great visual sequential storyteller. He captures action and movement and wonderfully. There's some great action in this. Some really fun 9-panel pages. Yeah, and the thing is, Tom has a definitely his art is a more open style, whereas with Jorge Corona and Danny Warren Johnson, they're like in there getting nitty gritty details and which is great. But what's great about Tom's open style, it's just very clean. The lines are there; they have purpose, they have meaning. They serve a purpose, and it also allows some of the color work to shine. So Jordi Belair does some amazing color work in here. Does a lot of stuff with different textures. Looks like some kind of like the dot pattern makes it feel like a vintage like printing in a vintage comic book. It has some really inspired color choices. So there's a new character that's introduced in this comic. It's the character of Risk, who's he's a mixed martial artist, and he carries a shotgun, so you can tell he's all about up close combat. And he deals in, I think, the role he fills in the team is like risk management. Like he determines the outcomes of I mean, I'm assuming determining the outcome of missions and risk assessment, see what they can affordable losses and all that kind of stuff. So that'll come into play more later on. But in this issue, you're introduced to him in like a 4-page sequence, and what's great about it is the coloring changes noticeably when there's a scene with Risk, and it's show this page like over here. So it's blues and yellows, and they're in a nightclub, and it's meant to kind of simulate the strobe lights of dancing and in the nightclub, but it just is a strikingly break from all of the Joe characters that we've seen so far. A lot of the Duke stuff. There's like reds and yellows, and you got these like flashback stuff and reds. She does that a lot. But but yeah, so having the that scene with Risk stand out was really cool. It's basically saying like, you know, this is something different, this is something new. So that was fun to see. The Cobra Commander Destro dynamic is continues. That's super fun. The fact that you have Duke who's settling into his leadership role, and you know there's some really great character. Even the you know the quiet moments in this book. Like there's a scene where Duke is sitting outside the pit, and you know he's kind of thinking about, you know, is this team ready for action? And you know they're not really ready for action, and they're up against they don't even know it yet so much, but they you know they think they're preparing for war with the Cybertron, you know, or the Cybertron and Cybertronian characters, and you know they have no idea that Cobra is really ready to attack, and as well as they are equipped. So yeah, even like I said, the quieter moments are still impactful, really good character moments, and then the end of the issue just is like breakneck action, and it's really good. So now this is a really strong start to this series. You know, a lot of times when you have when you anticipate something, it doesn't always quite live up to the hype. But this lived up to the hype, and I thought it was again looking back, it was a brilliant stroke to start off with. You know, the character miniseries like with Duke, Cobra Commander, Destro, Scarlet. The Scarlet characters are still they're like kind of separate. They're not really involved in this series yet, but everything else, all the other elements in the other miniseries all came together wonderfully in this first issue. So I am super pumped for what is to come with GI Joe. And naturally, there's like 8,000 variant covers, and I did pick up a couple. One I just got there's a foil version, which is really cool, like a matte finish foil that is not super flashy, but it just looks clean and cool, and you know, so couldn't help that. And plus, it's not. It was like an extra dollar. The DC foils are like $8, and I was like, no, but this one was only $5.99, so I was like, all right, I'll get that. And then I also got the Brett Booth. There's a Brett Booth variant cover, which is Cover Girl and Twins, and I just thought, you know, I love Brett Booth's action, and I had to pick this one up too. So that's super fun. And then just to close it out, I really wanted to talk about briefly. I wanted to talk about Void Rivals. So so we did Transformers and then GI Joe. It's only fitting that I talk a little bit about Void Rivals. I picked up the trade last week, read through it, and you know, one of the critiques I've heard about Void Rivals, and I experienced it a little bit with the first volume. It was a little bit of a slow burn. The first volume it just took a little bit to get into, but thankfully I had the trade, so it didn't feel as you know, if I had to do that month to month, it would have been a much slower burn. But now reading this all collected in issues 6 through 12, I didn't think this was a slow burn. I mean, there's a lot of characters involved. There's different plot lines that are going on, so that there definitely is that space opera kind of feel to it, because there's multiple, you know, not factions, there's just multiple storylines, and I guess there are factions because there's two planets that are, you know, at war with each other. There is, you know, there's conspiracy stuff. There's and then it's just a lot of action in this story arc, and you know, as you can tell from the cover, this Springer is introduced. So the Transformers character Springer is introduced in this series, and so if you're reading Transformers and you like Transformers, this is a really good complement series to that. I mean, it's definitely a different, you know, more of a science fiction story, but this is diving into the kind of the lore of Transformers, and I think that's going to be really cool about what the promise of what this is going to be in the future. I think is going to be, you know, crucial to the overarching story between, you know, Void Rivals, GI Joe, and Transformers. So I also picked up issue 13, which is the single issue after this one, and there are some elements of GI Joe that are already being introduced into Void Rivals. So Void Rivals now has Transformers characters. The character of Hot Rod shows up in this series, and then now it has also some GI Joe stuff. There's a character of Pythona, who was with the She was in the Cobra Commander miniseries, all the Cobra Law stuff, which again, a lot of people they don't like Cobra Law stuff, but I think it's been integrated um, intelligently into these stories so far. So I'm yeah definitely on board. So I'd recommend picking up the Void Rivals trade. I think you could probably pick up the trades of Void Rivals, and it would probably be a more enjoyable experience. Now, I mean, I've not done single issues, so I can't really speak to that for certain. Um, but I just feel like the way that this is being told and the way that there are multiple storylines going on, knowing me, I would lose those threads. I think on a month to month basis. So we'll see. I mean, I'm going to buy single issues from here on out. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, this man. Energon Universe stuff has been awesome, and it's funny because the hype in the comics world is a lot about Absolute Batman, and to me, Absolute Batman took a backseat to both Transformers and GI Joe, and you know, but that's what's great about comics. There's something for everybody, and I'm sure there's people that read Absolute Batman, and it was the other way around. Like this probably was the best issue of the week for them. But yeah, whatever. Again, comics are just they're fun, and I've been really having a lot of fun each week. And as you can tell, this week I really had a lot of fun. So anyway, yeah, thank you very much for watching this one, and I will see you soon.